Hello everybody and welcome back to Custom Camry. It's your boy Sebastian Lee, and in this episode we're going to be talking about redesigning our trunk. I also have a surprise for you in the engine bay and a sneak peek of our air suspension. So stay tuned for that and enjoy. So I started on the engine bay by rewiring all my positive wires to a certain location so it doesn't touch anything else. And from this terminal, I have this 0 gauge wire running from here all the way through the firewall. Since I'm running large gauge wire and I have speaker wire occupied on the side panels, I'm going to run this wire through the middle. And the first step we're going to do is take out the shift knob. Once we remove the shift knob, we're going to go ahead and remove the side panels, and they're easy clips, so you're just going to pop them right off. After removing the side panels, now you're going to see 2 screws that are exposed. You're going to go ahead and use your Phillips head and remove them. Now that the screws are off, we're going to go ahead and remove the gear shift housing. And before we do that, we're going to have to move the shift down. So use your key, move it to neutral, and then it should be able to come right out. It's simple clips, pop right off. Now with this vehicle, I have heated seats, so there's going to be 2 wires connected to this housing. You just push in the pin and you'll be able to remove the wires. After removing that last wire, let's go ahead and set it to the side, and now you have a clear view of what we're going to be working with when you want to run this wire. There's one more thing just to remove so it's easier to run this wire is the center console back piece. They're all clips, so you just go ahead and pull it and it'll pop right off. Now not only you have a clear view of how you're going to run your wire to the back of the trunk, but you can also tuck it underneath the carpet and it'll pop right underneath the seat. As you can see on the other side of the firewall, this is where I ran my 0 gauge wire, right to the center console. Now keep in mind there is a lot of room in this area, but just keep an eye out for any hot or moving parts. After running it through the center console, have it coming out where the rear AC vents are at, then underneath the carpet. And if you feel like you don't have enough 0 gauge wire to run it around the seat, you can always run it up in the middle straight to the battery. Now this is my new ported subwoofer box that I decided to make for my trunk. The other 2 that I custom made were unfortunately not ideal. They were too big. I would have to get smaller speakers in order to make it fit on the side of the trunk. So this is actually a better design. And now the other item that's going into my trunk is my custom air tank. This air suspension kit came with everything that I need. I got 2 compressors with the silencers for them. I have the manifold, and this is a 3H kit, so I have the height sensors to be installed. All the wiring came included, of course, and I decided to go with 3/8 tubing instead of 1/4 tubing. This is a quick look at the rear struts and also the front struts, all from D2 Racing. Now stay tuned for the next video because that will be the install of these guys. This is just the introduction of the pieces. Moving on to adding everything else in the trunk. Now this is the part where we add the isolator kit to the compressor. We're going to be putting in all 4 of these corners. And these compressors with the manifold are going to be mounted into this custom box that will fit perfectly in the spare tire well. And if you want to figure out where to drill these holes, the manual does come with a stencil for the compressors and a manifold, so you can come up with your own layout design. Now once you got the isolation kit installed, we're going to go ahead and mount it to the box. Once you got all 4 of the pieces installed, we're going to go ahead and flip the box and make sure it's mounted on. After getting both compressors mounted to the box, go ahead and double check if it's all secured. Up next, this is where we're going to mount our manifold. Unfortunately for me, this manifold mount happened to be too high, so I had to rotate the manifold facing downwards because of the wiring and the tubing kept hitting the glass that was in the trunk. You will see this later on. After mounting the manifold, now it's ready to be installed in the trunk. Up next, we're going to be mounting the air tank, and I decided to go with the trunk lid with this location. After deciding where you're going to mount the air tank, you're going to go ahead and mark all the holes where you're going to put the mounting bracket at. And just to make sure everything lines up right, I used measuring tape to see where exactly the holes are going to be at compared to the bracket. And after confirming the measurements, go ahead and puncture your holes so you can get ready to drill. Before that, let's go ahead and remove all these clips. In order for the air tank to be mounted, I made these custom made brackets that are going to be mounted onto the trunk lid. After getting both our pieces cut, we're going to see where we can mount this on the trunk lid. And before installing, make sure the distance between both of the brackets match the air tank mount. Unfortunately, the brackets can't be placed into a flat surface, so they will have to be bent into place. And just make sure both brackets are bent equally. After a few attempts, just use a couple clamps to make it a lot easier to make those bends. And once you're happy with the way the bracket fits, go ahead and match the other bracket with it. And as you can see, where I plan on putting these brackets are onto the sub frame and not the body itself. After constant measurements, I finally decided I was ready to drill the holes. After drilling all 4 holes, I placed the bolts for the brackets. Unfortunately, the bottom bolts were not easy to be placed, so we're going to cut a hole the same size as the top at the bottom. After placing in our last 2 bolts, we're ready to mount our bracket. After testing out how the brackets fit, we're going to go ahead and remove it and place 2 more bolts behind the bracket. After installing the bolts, we went ahead and placed the cover back on with just a couple clips so we can figure out where we're going to be drilling the holes for the bolts. Now that we got that back on, I verified that the holes that we marked earlier matched exactly where the bolts are at. We marked our spots, then we take down the cover and we're going to start drilling the holes. We're going to go ahead and place the cover back on and pull each of the bolts through the holes. The one thing I forgot to mention about the bolts and preventing them from being loose or free spinning when we're mounting our air tank is to make sure that they're either welded or glued to the brackets. Now let's bring our air tank over and we'll go ahead and mount it to the bracket. The best way to get this air tank mounted is to get 1 nut attached to a bolt, tighten it down, and then you can install the other 3 nuts to the bolts. Up next, we're going to go ahead and get ready to install our air lines right behind the cover. All the hose lines that are attached to the air tank will be coming out from the bottom of the cover, following down the hinges of the trunk lid. This is where the air tank lines will be coming out of. Just verify that when you're closing the trunk lid that it won't be kinking up the hose lines. Always make sure that when you're cutting these hose lines that you're using the proper tools. After you got all the hose lines coming down from the air tank to the trunk, we're going to go ahead and install our compressor box. With all the small spaces I'm working with, I really wanted to conceal my battery, so I went with a 21 amp rail battery. After getting everything installed, I went ahead and cleaned up the entire area, and this is how it looks without the trunk mat. And right before we get to the end result of the trunk redesign, I want to show you some hydro dip pieces that I have in my engine bay and B-pillar. Now the trunk redesign. I'd like to thank everyone for watching this video. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up, and please subscribe to this channel and support it so you can see other future videos for this car. And if you have any questions, please give me a comment. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Once again, love y'all, and thank you for watching.